Are you new to Microsoft Word? Maybe you're an experienced Word user, but you can't get rid of those annoying default spaces that are baked into Word on the desktop and browser. Maybe you're writing letters, memos, or resumes, and you need to make sure that your spacing and formatting is correct. In this video, I'll explain how to format your documents in Word for business and professional writing. We'll look at both the desktop version of Word as well as the browser version because each has some subtle differences in view and settings. Let's go ahead and dive in. First, take a look at Microsoft Word on the desktop. If you use the desktop version of Word, which I highly recommend, it's much more robust and it's a lot easier to find some of these settings. But we'll get into the browser version later. As you can see here, I have a brand new document. I haven't done anything to it. I haven't changed any of the settings or the formatting or the spacing. As you can see here, this is a blank document, and what I'm going to do first is I'm actually going to click this show and hide paragraph option. This is actually going to help you a lot because it's going to show you what Word is recognizing as a new line or a line space. Let's start by filling in some information about the document. I'm going to write a letter, and in the letter, I'm going to put the sender's address and the recipient's address. This is kind of what default Microsoft Word settings will look like. As you can see, there's a bunch of unnecessary spaces because every time I hit enter, which is indicated by this paragraph symbol, there's this almost entire line of spacing here. What we need to do is we need to actually reset. And this is how we're going to do it. I am back to my brand new Word document. I went ahead and turned on the paragraph hide view so that we can see some of these symbols as we're working. The first thing we want to do is go to layout. And from this layout setting, you'll already see something right here in your paragraph settings. Word by default is going to have spacing after every paragraph. Remember, this is our paragraph symbol. So by default, there is going to be a 8-point space after each paragraph, which is why in the last example we just saw, there was all that extra spacing. So there's a couple of things you can do. First, you can just get that down to 0. Now that'll make a big difference. Let's take a look and see what that looks like. This is much better. This is exactly how a letter should be formatted. We've got all of the lines. There's no extra spacing here. And you can tell that each one of these paragraphs is its own individual line. So this is how you'll effectively format your document. Now let's go a little bit more advanced. If you're still having trouble with your spacing, you may need to look a little bit deeper and look at some advanced paragraph and spacing settings. The first thing you'll want to do is, if you're seeing something that isn't quite right, is highlight everything in your document or hit Control A to select all. Then go to this paragraph advanced setting button that will open up all of the advanced paragraph settings. Now, what you may see is something over here that says multiple of, say, 1.16. And that is a default setting with Microsoft Word. What that will do is it'll actually create some spacing in between each one of these lines. A little bit of spacing is okay, but sometimes you'll see something weird where it's like a multiple of 3, which is almost double spacing for all intents and purposes. So if you're having any trouble with that, I would recommend, for simplicity, to just go to single line spacing. Single line spacing will just eliminate all the spaces, so you can be safe there. Another option is go to a multiple of 1.08. So if we go to single line spacing, you'll see how much tighter everything is. On the other hand, if you want to use a multiple line spacing just so that things aren't as crammed, I would recommend a 1.08. This will be a very subtle change, as you can see, but it'll give you a little bit more spacing and makes the text a little bit easier to read. It should be noted that if you are doing a research paper and you need to use APA 7 or another academic style of writing or formatting, I would recommend going into the advanced paragraph settings and selecting double spacing. That's going to be the easiest way to get your spacing correct. Make sure that you're staying away from the multiples or anything like that, and make sure that you eliminate any of the before and after paragraph spacing. Now let's take a look at the browser version of Microsoft Word. For a lot of students, you may just use the browser version so you don't have to download the more robust desktop version, which is totally understandable. There are a few subtle differences, and I'm going to show you where to find all of those settings. Again, I have a brand new document. I haven't done anything to it yet, but you'll notice that a lot of the navigation is different up here. You won't have nearly as many options for layouts and things like that, or settings. So we have to know where to look to be able to make these adjustments. Again, I'm going to type out the beginnings of a letter. Here, I've gone ahead and typed out the sender and recipient addresses for this letter as well as the date. And you'll notice exactly the same issue. We have these unnecessary spaces. How do we look at this from the browser version, and how is it different from the desktop version? Well, as you can see, we have this home feature over here. Home is going to be where we'll find a lot of things, and it's going to be right here with these ellipses. So if you click those, you'll see, first of all, that we can show and hide our paragraphs. That is where that particular button lives, under these ellipses. And as you can see again, we have paragraphs, but the spacing between each line is excessive. So we need to fix that. And again, we will hit Control A or Command A if you're on a Mac to select all. We will go back to the ellipses and we will look at a couple ways that we can change those things. First of all, line space. If we go to line spacing 1, it helps a little bit, but there's still some excessive spacing in there. So that's not entirely our option. Instead, what we can do is go to line spacing options. And this is going to be a very similar screen to what we saw in the desktop version of Word. You can see that there is this unnecessary space after each paragraph because remember, each time we hit enter, Microsoft Word thinks that we are creating a new paragraph. So the easy thing to do again there is take that down to 0. When we do that, voila, all of our spacing is gone and we have a nice tight letter format. If you want to make those subtle adjustments and do a 1.08 multiple or something similar, you can again go back to line spacing options and you can go here to where it's a single space. You can go to multiple and you can do a multiple of 1.08, just like we did on the desktop version. As you can see, we've got a little bit more spacing in there, so it's a little bit easier to read. That's the main difference between the desktop version of Word and the browser version of Word when it comes to line and paragraph spacing. Now let's look at margins. On certain assignments, if you're a student or maybe if you're a professional and you're writing a proposal or a resume or a cover letter, margins are going to be important. So if you need to adjust your margins, I'm going to show you how to do that with both versions right now. As you can see, we're back into our desktop version of Word. And the margin setting is super easy here. All you have to do is click up here in the top left where it says margins, and you'll see this drop down. So if you need to increase your margins, maybe you need 1.25 margins all the way around, or you need 1-inch margins. These are all pretty standard margin settings. For, say, letters or memos, you'll typically just use a 1-inch margin, but in some scenarios, you may want to do a 1 with a 1.25. But for, say, something like a resume where you want to maximize white space, you'll always want to use narrow margins. And as you can see, our margins are much more narrow. So if you're writing a resume and you need to really fill out all of the space on the page, narrow is going to be how you will do that. Now let's hop back over to the browser version of Word. Again, we're back in the same document that we were already working on, and it's going to be very similar, but with subtle differences. To be able to find your margins in the browser version of Word, you will want to go to Layout, and then the margins are right there. Same thing, if we want to go to narrow margins for something like a resume, then we can do that right there. As you can see, Word can be a fickle platform if you don't know where to look to update your settings. Hopefully, after watching this video, you'll see how easy it is to make the necessary changes to make your business and professional formatting top-notch. Did this video help? Let me know by giving me a thumbs up or commenting down below.